It was an Italian idea, and it totally altered the shape of towns. This is what the new pointed rampart looked like, called a bastion. And because it made town walls look star-shaped, the new defensive layout became known as the Star Fort. The architects that used to build these things used to come along to towns and sell the idea rather like you sell cloth. They'd say, you know, how many bastions can you afford? You know, we can give you 5, 6, 2, whatever you like. And the town would buy whatever it could afford. But you forgot the cost once you came up onto the bastions. Here you get a warmly impregnable feeling. Look around. The walls are nice and low. They're very difficult to hit. They're sloped so that any cannonball that hits them will ricochet off. And they're built in brick to withstand impact. Now, one bastion protects another. You see over there in that inlet, there would be guns over there firing along the side of my bastion, protecting me, and I can do precisely the same thing for the other bastion. And what is more, between us, we can put up really withering crossfire in this area, protecting the main wall of the fortress. Add to that scheme the island in the moat, the Ravelin as it's called, and put guns on it, and you're really wrapped up nice and snug. And should the enemy by any chance get onto that island, well, you simply get a big pile of guns on this bastion, a big pile of guns on the other bastion, and you blow them to kingdom come. That's what was so good about these bastions. You could use the guns on them so effectively. Look, the guns in the little inlet behind one bastion cover the next, and their neighbours returned the favour. They also protected the main wall if you got past this defence. And you never even got that far. The entire town was snug behind a cat's cradle of cannon fire. You wanted straight streets to move guns and ammunition from bastion to bastion if needed, so town planning got a boost. From mid-16th century onwards, people stood a fair chance of living out their lives in safety behind their new walls. All they needed was food and, of course, ammunition. Now, some of these places had as many as 200 guns, firing about once every 10 minutes. The guns were zeroed up before they were put into position. That is to say, they were test-fired. You fire the gun horizontally and see where the ball drops. Then you raise it 1 degree, see where the ball drops, raise it 1 more degree, see how far the ball goes, and so on until you reach maximum range. Now, since you live here and you know exactly how far across the moat the enemy are, you know the angle at which your gun has to be in order to hit them. To get that angle right, you use an adapted astronomical instrument like this. It's called a gunner's quadrant. Dead simple to use. You just shove it down the muzzle and watch where the plumb line goes past the scale, so you know the angle of elevation of your gun, and knowing that, you're ready to load and fire. Well, except for one thing. Does your gunpowder work as well as it should? And that's what that rather silly pole is all about over there. Testing gunpowder was a bit like going to the fairground, because this is what you did. You took a measured amount of standard gunpowder and you put it in that cup like that, and then you put a cannonball of a known weight on top, and then you lit the fuse and stood back. And depending on how far up the pole the ball went, you knew whether your gunpowder was okay or not. Well, so much for the defenders. What about the attackers out here? Well, they had a much harder time. They had to try and get those guns on the bastions out with whatever they were carrying at the time, the instruments they had. In general, that tended to be this. It's an astronomical instrument called an astrolabe. It's a kind of medieval astronomer's computer that can do all sorts of amazing things relating to the sky and eclipses and so on. Fortunately for the illiterate gunners, on the back it has a very simple star sighting device, which you can also use to find out how high above you those guns are that you want to knock out. You just line up the sights, read off the thing, and it says 7 degrees, so you know how high to elevate your gun. Okay, how far away are they? That's important. Well, if you take the astrolabe and turn it like that, horizontal, you end up with a device that was called a circumferenter. Here's one, and that's used for getting the distance away from you that those guns are. You line it up north-south because it's got a compass. Then you use these two sights here to draw a bead on the guns you want to destroy, and you can see from the scale how many degrees they are away from north to one side, as it were, from you here. You then go down the road a known distance and do that again. And that comes down to some very simple geometry, which they used to do on their drum heads like this. We're here. That other observation point, let's say, is down there, and we know that's 100 meters away. We just took a bead on the guns that was this much off north, if that's north. Down the road, when we did it, perhaps it would have been like that. So we know that the gun we want to hit is there. If we get a pair of compasses and use a scale, if that's 100 meters, then that's going to be about 110, and this is going to be about 105. So we know how far away to shoot if we're going to shoot from here or here. Fine. That was all right, except that while you were doing all this, they shot you. So when Leonard Digges, an Englishman, brought out in about 1560 a thing called a theodolite that did all these jobs in one go, he was a very popular fellow. This is it. See, it's got a plumb line, so you can set it up straight, and a built-in compass for pointing north. Well, the bit for finding the angle of the target off to one side of you works exactly the same way as the circumferenter. And so does the geometry bit that you do afterwards to find out how far away from the target your guns will be once you've done 2 sightings. The new thing is the part that tells you how high up the target is, this bit. With Digges's Theodolitus, you know all you need fast enough to stay alive. What you don't know is whether you're in the right place or not, because in spite of all these sophisticated instruments, at the time, maps were a joke. Look, this is all you got. The rivers you were going to cross, a few bridges where there was a bridge, and if there was a town that was going to give you something to eat, you got a little box with a steeple on it. That's all you had. No wonder so many people got lost. Anyway, Leonard Digges and his theodolite solved that map-making problem, thanks in the main to a recent and rather unsavoury divorce case.